afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm spin-off show of The Outer Realm, which airs Wednesday and Thursday nights. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. Running a little bit behind. Sorry, tech issues happens, unfortunately, to the best of us. But hey, anything fantastic is always worth waiting for. And this is going to be one of those shows because Maxim Furek returns. And this time, you guys are lucky because we get him twice this month, which is awesome. Next one will be on the Outer Realm, and that's going to be amazing. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But anyway, today he's talking about his book, Paranormal Apocalypse. And y'all know how I like the apocalyptic stuff because there's just so much to it, and end times and prophecies, and this has got a whole other darker twist to it, which makes it even more enticing. So I see people lining up in the chat room. Thank you. Hey, Kevin. Hello, Patsy. Hi, Mark. Patsy, Mark. Yeah, thank you, guys. Sorry again for the delay. Appreciate you guys being here. Heidi, hello. Love to see you all here. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road and welcome Maxim Furek. Hello.
Hi, Michelle. How you doing? And thank you so much. And sorry to be a part of the technical difficulties.
That's okay.
Here we are.
That's okay. I'm glad we were able to get it all sorted because I've really been looking forward to this. And this is a book we're talking about. Paranormal Apocalypse. Is this how it ends? That's so foreboding.
I know.
I looked at that and kind of went, they've got the Grim Reaper. This is like, ooh,
Yeah.
So, probably. Thank you. So, it was kind of foreboding. And I'm like, gosh, what would, and which I guess is what we'll start, what would prompt you to want to talk about this specifically and write an entire book on it?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, who isn't? Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
out of everybody who's out there, whether it's Freud, Jung, whoever,
Yeah.
H.P. Lovecraft was the one who was able to teach us, to give us the best definition of fear. And he said that fear is the most elemental emotion of man, and fear of the unknown is the most powerful. And so I go with that. My book is all about fear, understanding fear, controlling fear, and also the very powerful fear of the unknown, what lies around the corner, the apocalypse, the seven seals, all of that. So
Yes.
So I take a look at that, and the more I got into it, the more I was able to go and make the connections, connect the dots. But and I think that I had a great time with it. And this is I'm pretty sure the first interview we've had about Paranormal Apocalypse. So thank you for being a pioneer and an ambassador. And let's hope that let's hope that some of the people will take a look at it and maybe read it and make a review. But I wanted to do this. I think that I've done something for the proverbial good of the order. So I'm just glad that the book's out there.
Oh, I'm thrilled, and I'm always happy to oblige on the pioneer stage. In fact, even like the main show is known for that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, Amelia and I've always strived to try to bring the obscure to the forefront.
Well, if you're on the cutting edge, you're on the cutting edge. I mean, what could you say
Yeah.
about it?
I will take cutting edge. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Kara says, yeah, fear, false evidence appearing real. Like, I think we're going through a lot of that right now, and you cover some of this in your book. So we know that H.P. Lovecraft was definitely your inspiration, and you basically start off with a song.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this song. How do we go from a song to the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse?
Yeah.
There's a lot in between there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm a former rock journalist, and so music is dear to me. It always has been. But there was a song called "In the Year 2525."
Yes.
And it's Exordium and Terminus. But it talks about all the things that we're looking at. It looks at assembly line people, and genetically altered DNA, and just all of the things that that may happen in the future. So the book was sort of like a foreteller, a soothsayer of what was going to of what is happening
Mhm.
even today. And so I just decided to use that to start off the book with the lyrics
Mhm.
to the song, and then and again, it's still as profound today as it was back in the 60s. And again, this was written during the psychedelic 60s when we were into peace, love, and revolution, and all the other
Yeah.
wonderful things that well, which were formative years for me. And I can't say enough about it. I mean, those were like heady years, wonderful times. I mean, you
They
know
were. Yeah.
won't happen again. And
No. No. But I remember the song, ironically, because, even in the, late '60s, early '70s, aging myself, but, we had a family friend who would come and stay with me because I was younger, just saying. Aging myself too much. But, I mean, this is stuff that she would play. She was a total hippie and just total love life, flower power,
yeah,
and I remember this song, and when I saw you make mention, I went, "God, it's terrible, but I actually know this song
yeah,
firsthand,"
yeah,
you
and,
know?
yeah, and the song is a bit on the scary side.
Yeah,
Everything you think, do, and say is in the pill you took today. You won't need your teeth, you won't need your eyes, you won't find a thing to chew, nobody's going to look at you. I
yeah,
mean, or your arms hanging limp at your sides, your legs got nothing to do, some machine's doing that for you. Just on and on and on. I mean, it's just like there's nothing pleasant and happy. And um, I don't know. It's now it's been 10,000 years, man has cried a billion tears.
yeah,
Just a lot of
yeah, and that
lot
was it in the year 2525. God, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it was, we talked about it. It was sort of profound in the way that it got people to think and to talk, and but it was prophetic because a lot of this stuff is happening,
Yep.
and when you look at some of the things that they've done with the test tubes, and they're bringing back some of these animals that have been extinct, and there's one um, company that
Direwolf.
yeah,
Yeah.
one company that wants to bring back the saber-toothed tiger, and they're playing around with DNA and everything. So I don't know. I mean,
I know if you're hanging around the right places, like the Navajo Nation, apparently they see real saber-toothed tigers all the time.
yeah, I know. Yeah, and
So it's
yeah,
just like, I don't
yeah,
know, man. I
yeah,
don't think they ever went away.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I
Interesting. Yeah.
get you though. Yeah, I
Yeah,
do. We're
so
living
that book,
that. Living that.
just kicked it off, and I wanted to set the tone with it,
Yeah.
and that was it. But I want to thank you for acknowledging the cover, because I think the cover was just like, I mean,
Oh,
it's
the cover just sort of left me kind of going, Jesus.
yeah, 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 and it's a gray
Yeah,
dressed as a Grim
as
Reaper.
a Grim Reaper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
And and the hourglass, and it's definitely speaks on different levels, you know? Like, why did you name it specifically Paranormal Apocalypse?
because there's a paranormal connection.
Yeah, okay.
Paranormal has been with us in every shape and form. It's part of us, whether it's part of that spiritual thing or scientific thing, but the paranormal coexists with us. And as a
Mhm.
paranormal writer and researcher, what I try to do is I try to define the parameters of the paranormal, what they are, and I also try to go and present them as an academic in such a way that the scientific, and this sounds, God, I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous and ostentatious and just like over the top, but I
Crazy.
really,
It's like you say, the bridge between worlds.
yeah, it does sound this way, but I'm trying to just present the paranormal so that we could get some sort of validity and recognition from the scientific community and the public at large, so that
Mhm.
people realize that we're not crazy zealots with nothing else to do, but that that we're well-grounded people, and this
Yeah,
is what we're saying. So
yeah.
this is what I'm trying to do. But so far, I think that it's working because I mean, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to say. And I have such a hunger, such an insatiable hunger for all things paranormal, whether it's Bigfoot, flying saucers, or demonology, or now what they call eschatology, or is it eschatology? No, it's eschatology, which
Mhm.
is the study of end times. And it's not just biblical people and theologians, but it's people like you and I. It's
Mhm.
paranormal people who should also be taking a look at that to see what's around the corner, what can we anticipate. And here's the thing, my book is a sort of like a lesson book. If you're afraid of what is lurking around the corner, then read the book, because I believe I talk about some ways to go and control that fear. So that's what we need to do. We need to control and harness that fear. And so I think Paranormal Apocalypse, is that how it ends?
Mhm.
Isn't as gloomy and as I mean, you don't want to take that
It is.
cyanide pill. There's
No,
some
no,
there's some
don't
good
do
there's
that.
some good
Don't
news.
drink
There's some
purple
there,
Kool-Aid.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. There's some
Don't
good
take it.
news in there too. So
Yeah. So you coined the term apocalyptic awe.
yeah.
What is apocalyptic awe?
Yeah, I think we've been dealing with the apocalypse since early days, and we do it through history and mythology, through music, through literature, for all these things. And what we do is we try to go and control it by writing about it. We give it a beginning and end. We get the height and the depth, and
Mm,
so that's what we do with apocalyptic awe. We make sense of it, and we're able to control that fear by looking at it maybe vicariously, or by looking at it creatively,
mm,
through that creative cinematic or literary lens. And I
mhm,
think that's what I call apocalyptic awe. So it's something that
mm,
a lot of us do, and it's in the Bible, it's in the Revelations, it's in the New Testament. So it's what
mhm,
it's what everybody does to try to go and figure it out, control it, deal with it, etc.
mhm.
So that's what that is, and I hope that makes sense. I hope that.
No, absolutely does. I mean, this is something that has been going on since the beginning of time. I mean, you have some incredible people that have even foreseen this. And when you read some of it, and I'm just trying to see here if I can just pull this up for a quick minute, if it's on this note, that was essentially written by Saint Nilus, you know, and he basically, we're talking like 398 to 403 at this point, okay, and he goes on and says everything here after the year 1900, middle of the 20th century, people will of that time will become unrecognizable. I think he was just off because we're in the 2020
Yeah.
when things started to happen and we're going through it. But he basically just kind of touched on things like the world will become unrecognizable. People's appearances will change. It will be impossible to distinguish us all due to different styles of hair and dress and that kind of thing. And people will become cruel and like wild animals and getting to, of course, he was a saint, right? So getting into the temptations of the Antichrist
Yeah.
and he just kind of everything that he essentially wrote about is what we are experiencing right now,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And really, the whole world has taken a swing. We talked about the hippie days.
Yeah.
We have taken a swing to the right in many ways, a swing towards totalitarianism.
Mhm.
There's just a whole lot of anger and conflict, certainly in the United States. I mean, it's just like, I mean, like we're split down the middle, give or take, and just a lot of anger, with politics, with religion, with people shooting the place up. I mean, we're really in precarious times now.
Mhm.
And with the end times, people say this, the uh, eschatologists say that either Revelations, the end time, the apocalypse has already happened, or it's happening around the corner, or we're
Yeah.
living it now. So
Yeah.
take your pick, either A, B, or C, or maybe a little bit of all three of them. But um,
Mhm.
but again, the thing that we need to do as human beings is to go and control. It's not what happens, but it's how we respond to that,
Hmm.
And again, the thing that differentiates us, and I talk about this in the book, that we are different from animals because we have more DNA, and with the animal kingdom, it's stimulus response. With humans, hopefully, it's stimulus cognition response.
Yeah.
So before we act, we think,
Yes.
and with that, the more DNA than the animals, more in this case is better because we have more cognition and we have more spirituality. So, as individuals, you do with that gift, that wonderful genetic gift, what you will. You could either develop it further and raise your level of consciousness and vibration, or you could just you know,
Hmm.
stay in the pit, with everybody else. So
Hmm.
again, but I mean, we have the ability to go and climb and evolve and be the spiritual creatures that we are. So,
I
but
think
I
it's the
think,
only thing we have control over is how we handle the situations that are presented, because we certainly can't handle the situations. I mean, we're not the ones in control of that, but we can control how we perceive it or how we accept it. I think awakening is a really big thing, as you're saying.
yeah, yeah. And I think that when, with me, I mean, good things happen and things that aren't so good. But
Hmm.
when good things happen, I have a small group of friends that I will celebrate with. I say, look at this. I mean, isn't this great? But then when
Yeah.
the bad things happen, realize that they're fleeting too. This too will pass. So, I mean,
Mm.
deal with the crap, deal when things go sideways, deal
Mm.
with the idiots that don't like you and they're coming after you. I mean, that's okay. That's part of life, but
Mm-hmm.
that'll pass too. But I mean, I have I mean, I am not complaining. I'm not criticizing anything. I mean, I have a
Mm.
good life and I'm living a good life. And I'm
Yeah.
just living a life of appreciation and gratitude for, everything that I've been given and everything that I'm working towards. So.
I think that's the way to do it. Keeping the vibrations high, make things a lot easier. Polly says the death resurrection, might it be more related to human souls being awakened, more so than, let's say, dead people coming back to life?
Yeah, I think that there's a bit of a renaissance. I think, well, a couple of things. One, um, if you take a look at organized religion, I think if I have this quote correctly, with my group, the baby boomers born between 1940, 1949 and 1964, I think they have baby boomers.
Mm.
Though they did a survey, and there were 64% of baby boomers that believed in organized religion and God, as opposed to 24% of Generation Z.
Hmm.
And I think the oldest one now is maybe 26 years old. 24% of Generation Z believe the same thing.
Hmm.
But here's my question. If, in fact, we are spiritual creatures, and if some of us aren't going to church, then what are we doing? How do we demonstrate that spirituality? How do we manifest it? How do we work out that muscle, that we have to? And so I think that maybe uh, Generation Z does it in other ways, and I'm not quite sure, but it might
Hmm.
be they may be more altruistic, they may be more helping, they may be more aware of their communities. I'm not sure, but I mean that spirituality doesn't go away, and you don't have to go and demonstrate that by going to church or
Hmm.
or any other things that we baby boomers did. I mean, there's
Well,
another way to go.
even religion, the Bible tells you the kingdom of God is within you. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
and I mean, a lot of spiritualists, they'll have a temple in the forest. They still talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
They just not four walls. I
Yeah.
prefer to walk in the forest. I prefer to ground and do earthing and be in communication with nature,
Yeah. Yeah.
creation of our creator, as opposed to the four walls of the conditioning.
Yeah, and John Muir, what Muir, I believe, with the great American naturalist, talked about going into the forest and looking into the eyes of God. I mean, it
Yeah.
works. It works every time. It's just a great, peaceful way to meditate and to
Hmm.
get into a good, and also to get rid of the white noise, all of the stuff that's making us crazy in this world. So, I wrote the book maybe even as therapy. Maybe that book was cathartic for me, just to write a book
Hmm.
about the apocalypse and the fear of the apocalypse. And and when you write about it, like when you do your journal writing and write about your fears and your hangups and your neuroses, it helps. It's talk therapy. It's giving it a beginning and an end. And
Hmm.
journal writing, as well as doing your podcast and me writing my books, gives us this a way to look at the world, in well-defined terms. We can control the world better when we do that, and it's just a great concept, a great ability we have as humans.
Hmm. I agree. I agree, and I think you're starting to really see people go beyond the boundaries. Those who are having that aha moment
Uh-huh.
are going beyond their comfort zones to explore. Wait a minute, what is this? I think we are in times where people are like, wow, did anybody get the plate of that Mack truck that hit us? It's just,
Yeah.
and they're starting to look outside of the comfort zone, and they're quite surprised. It's like, hey, wait a minute, there's something more.
Yeah, I know. In the States, I think it was 1966. Things were very nice, very vanilla, and it was during the hippie movement.
Mhm.
1966. It was Charles Whitman climbed up in Austin, Texas, to the tower building there, and he had all these an arsenal of guns, and he was picking off the students there in Austin one
Mm.
by one. It was a horrendous thing that happened, and we realized that maybe we weren't as safe as we thought. And
Mhm.
this sort of like one of the first things. And then we had another one around that time with Richard Speck. And he wasn't a sociopath. He was a psychopath. That's a sick
Mhm.
individual who derives sexual pleasure from
Mhm. Mhm.
torturing people. And he killed all those nurses in Chicago, and just a horrible example. But that was in the 1960s. And if you look at what's happening today,
Mhm.
we're having mass murders in the United States of America every other day at either at schools or churches. And there is something very toxic, very bad, very apocalyptic happening right now. And
Mhm.
we need to find out what it is, define it, and then try to fix it, because uh, it's horrible. I mean, the blood is running in the streets, and
Mhm.
I'm fearful. This needs to be addressed. It needs to be stopped. And
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
know in the past, when we had these mass shootings, a lot of the American politicians will say, well, we need to have the Lord's Prayer in schools. And this was their fix. This was their solution. But I contend that it's going to take more than that. So,
Mhm. Well, I think, people have to find faith with whatever gives them strength, and that's probably the easiest way to explain it. What gives you strength, and lean towards that. As long as it's something positive, as long as it's giving you a good, like I said, vibration. Negativity feeds on fear, feeds on negative energy, right?
right,
Like
right.
these, it's the circle
Yeah.
of what keeps it all going. But you want to starve that energy, you've got to have a higher vibration. You mentioned that in the 50s, you mentioned the nuclear testing site outside of Las Vegas as an
Yeah.
example of this apocalyptic awe. Can you
Yeah. Right.
explain why?
Yeah. That was just crazy.
Yeah.
So, for the folks that don't know, out right outside of Las Vegas, they would do underground bomb testing,
Hmm.
and then they would do above ground testing. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of tests.
Yeah.
The Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce realized that this was a moneymaker. So they would find out when the government was going to do these above ground testing. And the people would go and show up with their lawn chairs and their drinks, watching this mushroom cloud pop up, like what, 100 miles away or 60 miles
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Vegas. They had a woman, she was the lead dancer from the Sands, I believe it was, and she became Miss Nuclear Bomb. She had a bikini that was shaped like a nuclear bomb going off,
Mhm.
but they made this into a commercial cash cow. People were coming there, and then it wasn't until later that they realized that people were starting to have a certain incidence of leukemia and radiation, connected, illnesses. So
Mhm.
we stopped doing that. But I mean, I mean, think about that. I mean, that's pretty amazing that people would go there and sit in their lawn chairs and watch these explosions, and then and they didn't know it, but they were being doused with with radioactivity. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, man, were we dumb and were we stupid? And that was apocalyptic slash commercialized awe. And
Mm-hmm.
again, my concept that I conjured up, but that was just amazing that happened. And I remember I had a conversation with somebody, and he said, "What do you mean hundreds of explosions?" I said, "Yeah, hundreds, maybe thousands. I don't know, but it happened out there, and
Mm-hmm.
there was no pushback." There was no pushback by the citizens. I mean, what did we
Mm-hmm.
know? I mean, what did we know about radiation and all that? We thought that this was a good thing. This was like our military might. These were the people that were going to keep us safe. Well, these were the people that were killing us with radioactivity.
So do you think, why do you think this whole apocalyptic, this movement, it seems to come back throughout? I mean, I don't know necessarily every generation, but I would think probably close to every generation. Like every decade, there seems to be an event that lead people to thinking, "Oh boy, end times." Why do you think it keeps playing out? Do you think that we as humanity just focus so much on it, or do you think it's just pumped out there to the point where it keeps us, in that state of fear, which is also an energy that can be fed off of?
Yeah.
What do you think? Is it a fascination? Is it a fear thing? What is it?
Well, it's all of that, but there's sort of an ebb and flow.
Okay.
When it has high visibility and recognition, then it sort of goes away. It never really goes away, but right now I think that there's a lot of talk about that, only because of these dystopian times, these
Right.
times that are very grim and bleak.
Mm.
They're not the happy days that we used to have. We're paying more money. There's a lot of uncertainty. Uh,
Mm.
and it's politics enters into it. Like, for example, because of our tariffs, China isn't buying soybeans from the United States. They buy from other countries, maybe
Mhm.
Canada, who
Mhm.
knows. But the farmers in North Dakota that were shipping 70% of their soybeans to China now don't have that market. That's kaput. So those
Mhm.
people are really despondent and angry and frustrated. And that's just one example of a whole lot of things that are happening. So we have this dysfunctionality. We have this dystopian world that's out there that people are more, I think, negative than optimistic. It's very difficult to be optimistic during these days of Gaza being nuked and
Mhm.
Russia invading Ukraine. Again, politics is part of this, as well as the economy and all
Mhm.
the rest. So uh,
Kind of
I just
reminds me of 1984 a little bit, the
yeah,
book.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, what I do, I mean, I'll tell you what, during COVID 2021, during 1920 and 2020 and 2021, I finished my rock and roll book, Somebody Else's Dream. And
Mhm.
that was my therapy. The walls were closing in. I was crazy as everybody else with COVID and people dying and living in Florida. Some people are wearing masks and some people aren't. Some people are getting shot and others aren't. It was a war. It was a culture war down
Mm.
there. And I'm wearing my mask walking through Walmart and people are mocking me for, as a liberal for wearing a mask. I mean, God, was it ugly. But nonetheless,
Mm.
I just think that with me, writing Paranormal Apocalypse was the right thing to do at the right time, because I think these are the days when people are starting to feel a little bit despondent, a little bit concerned, and waiting what's happening around the corner. And the worst scenario is that, I mean, these are just very, very grim days for the United States of America. I mean, we are truly, once again, the ugly American, and I hate it. I mean, I'm very very upset.
I think it's a worldwide thing. You're seeing it. You're seeing it everywhere. You talk to people from different countries, they may very well tell you the same thing about where they are.
Yep.
There's a lot
Well,
of division out there right now.
can you say that in Canada? Is your Canadian government? Are you the ugly, considered the ugly Canadian, Or you?
Do we have such a thing in Canada? Cause can I plead the fifth? Like, I don't even want to answer the question.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I apologize for everything that's coming up from the United States of America
Yeah,
because
just
because
kind of going, oh,
I'm not part
yeah,
of it and I didn't do it. But
yeah.
I hate what's happening because it doesn't have to be this way. I mean, we're a prosperous country, but we're also a loving, forgiving, altruistic country that it includes everyone, and that's not happening now. And that's part of the horrific apocalypse. I mean, that's these are the worst things that are happening right now, and I don't
Mm.
know. I think part of the end times are here now.
Um, I agree on many different levels with that one. Polly says, how does the apocalypse and the alien narratives work together? Is there a connection?
Yeah, first of all, I think we need to, you've heard the theory that we're all the same. We're all the same vibration. We're on the same little sphere, whatever that is, give or
Hmm.
take. So, and we need to recognize that just to go and have more compassion for one another. But I think everything's the same. And I talk about a lot, like especially in co-region hoodoo, my book, Co-region Hoodoo, I try to go and uh, take the spiritual and the paranormal and put them closer to the scientific. I believe that everything shares that same space. So, whether it's aliens, cryptids,
Hmm.
demonology, whatever, I
It's all
mean,
connected.
it's all connected and you just have to
Hmm.
find those connections. And even with the scientific, the easiest one is it's cause and effect. But you see the apple drop and the effect is we see it dropping, and we know that's the easy one. We know that's because of Newton's law of gravity, law
Hmm.
of motion. So it drops because of the law of gravity. But with the orbs and the aliens and the saucers and everything else that we're seeing, we don't know the scientific connection. We don't know what that cause. We see the effect, but we don't know what the cause is. So I think a lot of the things that we talk about, on your program and in my books will be explained at one point scientifically, but maybe not for a while. I think that I'd love to have more people in the scientific community. And we just lost Dr. Jeff Meldrum,
Yes, I
who was
know.
such a leader. He had such, he has such, I mean, he has such big shoes to fill. And I had a chance to meet him and listen to him down in Ocala, Florida, a couple years ago at the Bigfoot Expo. And he said he was the one that many times wouldn't get invited to the high table because he was the guy looking for the scientific approach, the scientific rationale. And there's a lot of Sasquatchers out there that just believe in flesh and blood, and that's it. I mean, they it's their way or the highway. And Jeff
Mhm.
was looking for more scientific data, and actually he had a lot of. I mean, when you look at his the plethora of Bigfoot casts that he had, probably the biggest, one of the biggest collections anywhere, and those speak. I mean, that's pretty valid. I mean, when you take a look at those casts, I mean, they weren't made by humans and they weren't made by bear. It was something else, and Jeff knew that, and he talked about that, and he was an expert in ambulation and stride and all that, so he was able to go and approach this from an academic perspective that very few of us have, because very few of us have those academic credentials and very few of us are going after those credentials. So we lost a big one with Jeff Meldrum.
Yeah, that was sad. Unfortunately, I think you'll see a lot of. I like to think that there are a lot of researchers out there that will pick up the torch and keep going based on his research, and I think it's like that in many fields. You just have to have a lot of people who people have different perspectives. You don't necessarily have to agree with them. You just respect them the way you would expect to have your perspective respected, you
Yeah.
know, and I think that's how people learn and they come together. They might say, "Hey, you know what? Like, I kind of dig a little bit of what you're saying. I can probably accept that," and then you have more people who want to come out with their research. Some people are very private about it because they really don't like the way the field behaves with respects to other opinions or opinions that might be a bit out there. The whole quantum thing, you look at Ron Moorhead. I mean, this man's brilliant,
Yeah.
and he's completely, quantum Bigfoot. And the first time I actually caught wind of that, I went, you know what? Yeah, that is a thing. That's like infrasound. I mean, everything. It just
Yeah. Yeah.
made so much sense
Right.
to me,
And
But
he approached that from another perspective.
yeah,
With this again, looking at J. Allen Hynek's,
yes,
levels of high strangeness. So he did it
yes.
like uh, Jeff Meldrum did. But the other thing too is I think some people are afraid to come forward just because of the ridicule. And there's people out there that are making things up and using AI, and they're hoaxers, and they're liars, and they do a great disservice to our community. And the one thing that I like to talk about, the Vatican exorcist, Dr. Amorth, talked
Mm,
about the 2%. And 98% of the people that are allegedly possessed by demons, are actually manifesting aspects of mental illness, whether it's schizophrenia, Tourette's syndrome, bipolar illness, whatever. Father Amorth was only concerned about the 2%. And those are the 2% that actually have demonic possession. So we have to make sure that what we're talking about, to make sure that we know what we're talking about, and it's the real thing. And I believe, that there are realities out there, but there's also non-realities. And we see so much of that in the field of cryptozoology and ufology, the hoaxers and the AI, and even, if I may, George Adamski from the early 60s, he was showing these pictures, these ridiculous pictures of flying saucers that were egg incubator crates and light bulb fixtures, and people believed it. I mean, come on, Google some of his flying saucers. I mean, they were not real. They were like,
mm.
come on, who would do that? But he had a pretty sweet message, that the space brothers are here to save us from our own destruction. So
With a lot of different types of cults out there, I mean, there still are, which would amass all these people of like mind. People really believe some of this stuff.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well,
But it's like goes full circle into the cult mentality. It's like end of the world. Let's get up on the mountaintop and wait for the
yeah,
flying saucer to pick us up.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
was a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and just a special alert: don't do that. Don't be a
don't
lemming. Don't follow
don't
the
do that.
crowd. Don't
Yeah,
go over the cliff,
yeah.
and use rational, common sense thinking that was given to you by your creator, whoever he or she is. So we have rational thought. We have cognition. So use it. We're a higher vibration than the amoebas
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and the lemmings. But a lot of people are just content to follow the leader because it's easier.
Mhm.
It's easier to be a masochist than to just fall in line
But you
and
have to remember that there are small, arms that branch off every theory. Like I'll use, for example, possession. Very rare. Possession is indeed rare.
yeah,
However, infestation is not.
yeah,
And I mean, working 2 decades in that field, I know when working with people, if I was working with the Catholic Church, people who were Catholics, it'd be like I needed, psychological assessments. I needed permission from the doctor to work with them. If they were on medication, the medication didn't work, then you're like, okay, I always got permission as long as I never had them go off the medication, which I'm not a doctor, I would never do.
yeah,
But infestation is real. Things that happen in your space that you know feel uncomfortable, that sense of being watched, things always coming in and doors opening and closing, like there's a lot there. And I find sometimes even people who have certain like I go back to autism or
hmm
people with Down syndrome, they're really wide open, like their brains work differently. And that sometimes attracts things in. You have to understand, exorcists deal in exorcism, right? You are possessed. That's why we are here. But then you have the in between, this infestation. Then you have these people who can project energy, create poltergeist activity,
yeah,
psychokinesis,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
telekinesis.
yeah,
Like there are so many branches that go
right,
off
yeah,
that
it's a,
change and alter your
yeah,
mindset, but the church isn't going to get involved necessarily, with an infestation per se. I mean, you might be able, the priest might be able to get permission to come in, bless the house, do things like that. But when you get the big guns, they're coming in usually, like
Yeah.
you say,
Yeah. Well, you
you know.
bring up a really good point. So do you think there's a connection or correlation between people that are mentally ill and people that are infested by, say, demonic spirits?
What I have experienced in working with people, I know that people who are, let's say, because I have friends and family who have, autistic children who
Yeah.
are now
Yeah.
adults, but their brain works differently. Like they're just. I know that our family member, she can see things, like she'll just blurt it out and say, "Oh, what's this?" Very innocently, we're like, what's what? And then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
all of a sudden something happens, within the space. You're like, okay, so was that a projection or was that either way? It shows that there's a lot of emotion. Like they'll say children going through puberty, women going through menopause can create activity, like psychokinesis, project energy. You can project footsteps and stacking of chairs, things like that. Like, I mean, that's, they say, well, it's poltergeist activity, which is a pretty much a projected energy
Hmm.
of sorts. But I also believe it's a double-edged sword if you have somebody with schizophrenia. And are people who suffer from this, are they being targeted by something coming in because they're thinking nobody will believe you
Yeah.
anyway because they think you're this? Or is it perhaps the other way around? Is this infestation creating something that just makes you flip a switch? And I go back to one thing that makes me think it's a possibility, because I once had a young man say to me, he was in a hospital when he was younger. He was about 18, and he saw a young boy in the emergency room across from him, and he looked up and he could see a black shadow moving up the wall over the ceiling, coming down towards the boy. And he basically said, he goes, I told it to come to me instead and to leave the boy alone.
Wow.
And then the thing moved over, right over to him. And then he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So did he have it beforehand? He said, a lot of things changed after that for me, but it was because maybe he was schizophrenic and he had the ability to see. And, or was it that this being came to him and just caused something to flip a switch?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of different theories. I'm not a doctor. I can't say yes, the yay and nay on any of it, but I can tell you I've seen a lot of different
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah. But even with that autistic spectrum, it's just I mean, it's just so widespread. I mean, there's so many different
Mm,
aspects of it, and some of these folks have abilities. I mean, they have
yes.
special abilities. And I had a friend that I don't know what it was called, but her letters had colors. All the letters were represented by certain colors, and we
Mm,
talked about this, and she was my proofreader, but she was able to do this. For some reason, the colors of the text helped her. And again, I can't explain it. She's explained it to me numerous times, but she had that gift, that ability. So
mm,
I don't know, and we don't know a whole
mhm.
lot about autism, how it's
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you our family member one time was just sitting in the room and she leaned over to her mother and she said, "What's growling?" And I'm just kind of like, "Sorry, that's with me." I was working with a family, and sometimes things have a way of just following you home, following you around. They do, because they can infect more than one place at a time. And I was just like, gosh. And I mean, I had been there literally within a couple of days before she visited, and things were happening, little things were happening. I had to clear the house, obviously, but it was interesting to me that she picked it up, because I have mediumship, so I knew. Yep, I know it was there, but I believe that that they're natural mediums. First off, because at the time she was a child, and they're natural little psychics,
yeah, yeah,
and and the fact that she also, like I say, I always say the brain works differently, and being on the spectrum, the brain works differently, and they basically just see things, hear things. I think maybe it's amplified,
yeah,
and I've worked with families whose family members on, like I said, on the spectrum, have they travel when they sleep,
yeah.
but things things just seem to come back with them. They just
Yeah.
seem to have this light about them or this energy that attracts things just to follow back.
Yeah, yeah. Why do you say that children have they're natural born psychics? Why do you say that?
Well, because I've experienced it many times. You know, like I said, I've worked with many families, and um, I think it's because they're still very pure. They haven't been
Okay.
I say corrupted by life, you know, job, you know,
The
homework,
white noise.
the white noise,
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah,
all of that, all of
yeah,
that.
yeah,
There's still
yeah,
that innocence.
yeah.
And if they can retain it, like I think we as parents tend to ruin that sometimes for them. You know, your child will say, well, I have an imaginary friend. That imaginary friend could be a spirit, it could be a spirit guide, it could be a family member who's passed on. And parents would be kind of like, yo, don't be stupid, don't be silly, there's no such thing. And that makes them withdraw into themselves. So maybe then they stop talking about it.
Hmm.
Whereas I come from a family and I was, you know, like I was the type of parent and you know, my husband at the time was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like, this is what acknowledge it, but you do what you got to do. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And my mom was the same way with me because that came from a family, a lot of mediumship. And she'd be like, "Oh, okay. So describe this person. Oh, okay, that's good." And we'd keep an eye on things to make sure that it didn't escalate into something maybe very like a trickster coming in and a mimic, you know, that a lot of times it would be like they would just show me family pictures, you know, just because and say nothing. And I'd say, oh, I saw this person who'd been dead for 30 years, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this is how it was approached. But I think it's one of the reasons that children who go past puberty into adulthood retain it because they're supported.
yeah, yeah, yeah. In Paranormal Apocalypse, I talk about the combination of fear and curiosity. And I
Okay.
think children are able to go and conquer fear through curiosity. I mean, they want to know what's under the bed and what's in the closet. And I believe that if we can retain that curiosity as adults, we can also retain that youth. I mean, I think that's the key. Again, human beings are here to discover and investigate and to express that curiosity. This
Hmm.
is what makes us what we are. You know, again, we're not animals, we're beyond that. But you know, with the the spirituality, with the cognition, and with the curiosity, that's what makes us climb mountains and go
Hmm.
under the oceans and do all the wonderful things that we do as human beings. I mean, curiosity drives the train. And you know,
Hmm.
and I talk again about that, the correlation, the combination, the intertwining of fear and curiosity. And
Hmm.
again, another way to go and understand it and conquer it.
Hmm. So I think that's you know excellent because it's stuff that needs to be addressed. I don't think it gets addressed enough, at least in a you know with these type of connections. Um, so getting back into religion or spirituality, um, who are the ones? Like you know, I believe you know the Catholics, obviously because they talk about it, they write about it. But who talks about end times? Is it just the Catholics, or does everybody? Do you have many faiths that turn around and talk about end times, instilling the fear of God, and this is happening, and
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. When you look at the four major religions, let me see: Catholicism, Buddhism, Hindu,
Yeah.
and Islam. All of them look at the end times. You know, all of them look at the day of atonement, of reckoning. You know, maybe in Islam with Allah and all that.
Mhm.
The only one that's different is Buddhism, which talks about a type of reincarnation. So, all of these religions talk about the pain and suffering. You know, the day when everything is going to get corrected. You know, the judgment, the day of judgment. You know, the
Mhm.
end times. Except for Buddhism, that talks about something in more actually more loving, gentle terms. You know, all the other religions are a little harsher and a little bit, you know, scary and punitive, but Buddhism seems to be the one that really, you know. And I always thought that a combination of Catholicism and Buddhism would be, man, that'd be the religion that would rock. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
we should put something together. What do you think?
I know. I think it could work. I'm all about love
Yeah,
and light, so love and
yeah,
light, I pass it around everywhere.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
but that's a good question. And then I did a program the other day, and I was talking about the rite of exorcism, and a young woman who works in Saudi Arabia and Egypt. I mean, she's an Irish a Middle Eastern woman, and she gave me her phone number. But she was talking about um, the Islamic equivalent to the rite of exorcism, and it's just about the same thing. So she gave me her phone number. I was going to call her up and find out about this. But here's another similarity, another sameness, another my theory that everything's the same. So wouldn't that be something that if that Islamic whatever they call their rite of exorcism, if it's similar to what the Catholics do, and again with Catholicism and exorcism, I believe the Protestants let that one go in the 1600s. I mean, at one time they did their rite of exorcism as well, but for some reason, and I need to research this and find out why, but they don't do it now. So I think that
Yeah.
the rite of exorcism, that's RITE, it has been left then to to the Catholic Church and their exorcists. So
Well, I think
every
the rite of exorcism itself, that term, the rite of exorcism, is Catholic.
yeah, okay,
I think that's maybe where there might be a bit of confusion. We've had, we had Bishop James Long come on, and he said no, the rites of exorcism is a Catholic thing, but there are many faiths out there that have their versions of exorcisms. They have, like, some will they call them deliverances.
okay,
I witnessed a deliverance one time, and it was through it was a family I was working with, and a friend of mine who was a Christian minister out of North Carolina connected me up because we have people travel the world and do these things. I'm like, really? That's crazy. I'm like, okay, yeah. We waited a year for them, and there was all kinds of stuff going on with the family, and the wife was Christian and the husband was Muslim. So there was a conflict of who to bring in, who to do what, because the beliefs were sort of doing this.
yeah,
So I went outside of Catholicism. I went outside of the Muslim faith, and we brought in just somebody willing to do it. And I'll tell you, like, I never experienced anything like it. There were two different places affected at the same time. This woman came in, and if you ever hear the term speaking in tongues,
yeah,
I wasn't sure what to expect. I'd never seen anything like it. She came in, started speaking in tongues, and it took 2 hours. Both places cleared like this,
yeah.
and they remained that way for, I think, a year, 2 years. It was something crazy. And there are people who travel and do just that.
Hmm.
So I don't know, but again, are you dealing with possession, or in this case, it was infestation?
Yeah, okay. Well, with possession, supposedly some of the hallmarks of that would be speaking in tongues,
Yeah.
having superhuman strength, being
Yes.
able to levitate, and
Yes.
also being able to say to the people that are in the room that to talk about their secrets, things that only that
Yes.
person would know. So
Yeah.
there's some
Telepathic.
really, really strange, very paranormal, supernatural abilities that these people that are possessed seem to have.
Yes, and they basically state that they cannot recite, for example, the Lord's Prayer
Yeah, yeah.
or a prayer of their faith. They cannot. They can never seem to be able to either remember the words or be able to get the words out as well, which I always found very interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely, stuff out there. And the fact, I mean, I'll ask this when it comes to, well, I'll ask this question from Polly first, then I'll ask my question. Hopefully I can remember it. Is there a way to avoid the apocalypse, or is it like a signed contract?
Oh, that's the question. Okay. Well, here's the thing. If you look at Revelations and what they say about the four horsemen and the seven seals, this thing unfolds, and at the end, it's going to be the time of judgment with war and famine, and all of that. So it's supposed to be the final coming, the second coming of the Lord,
Hmm.
where the sinners will be cast into the pit, where the worthy people will have the rapture and go up into heaven. And I think there's a second act where the sinners may have another chance at redemption. I believe that's how it's written. But that's what's in the Bible. That's what's in Revelations. And it was Hal Lindsey. We talked about the ebb and flow. Hal Lindsey, in I think it was the 70s or 80s. There's a chapter in Paranormal Apocalypse about him. But he was able to tap into that and talk about those apocalyptic fears. And what he did was he was able to go and get the fundamentalists and the evangelicals aboard. So he was able to go and sell this thing to the masses. Again, highly successful. One man, Hal Lindsey, just rewriting the Revelations and the apocalypse for another audience, and it worked, and people were just drooling. I mean, they were just salivating for more information about this,
Hmm.
because the people had heard about it but didn't really delve into it. But now with those people that look into the end times, and I think there's more people doing that now because we're starting to wonder. How close are we going to get? We talk about the doomsday clock, that we're something like 19 seconds closer to total destruction. These scientists get together and they take a look at what's happening throughout the world. And, we got some instability there with North Korea and with Russia and, with a
Hmm.
whole lot of other things happening. So, not too long ago, there was a little skirmish between India and Pakistan, two countries that have the nuclear bombs. So, it just depends on just how crazy the world gets. And hopefully we have voices of moderation that are out there, and
Hmm.
voices that are speaking, talking of peace and working together. And let's hope that we do this in so many different ways. And, the other thing too, Michelle, that, there's some people that are really worried about the apocalypse, but maybe you don't, maybe I don't. And as long as there's other people that share those values, at least there's two of us and four of us and six of us and a whole community of us that, don't have that fear, but we have the comprehension and the cognition to go and try to figure it out and make sense of it. But there's no need to live in fear. And we don't have to. That's not the state. We all could be in a state of joy and happiness, and or at least reach for that. So
Well, that would starve a lot of energies out there. But um, what is the message of the four horsemen, in your opinion?
yeah, well, the four horsemen were coming to us, and they were talking about war and famine, all of the bad things, and they all represented that. Uh, um, so they were after the four horsemen. Then we had the seven seals, and all of these things were just another revelation of the second coming of Christ, that the apocalypse was coming, that the end
Mm.
times were coming. So, again, when you read Revelations and when you read about the four horsemen, then you have to go and see, if just try to interpret this as best you can, because it's symbolic, but
Mhm.
it may be symbolic of a very valid reality. So that's up to the individual
Mhm.
reader to make sense of. But don't, I don't want anybody to say that it's just nonsense and it's just like,
Mhm.
it's there's something there, there's some truth to it, and we just have to determine what that truth is.
Do you think that there are people out there who may purposely, read, for example, the Book of Revelations, might read things like 1984, they may read or listen to certain songs in the year 2025,
Yeah, yeah.
25. Do you think, and I will put it with apocalyptic stuff, that they're trying to force it to bring forth the prophecies, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, I have a chapter on Reverend Jim Jones. Jim Jones said that there was going to be a nuclear war, I think in 1967,
Mhm,
and that his people, the People's Temple, had to come with him down to South America, to Ghana,
mhm,
or Guyana rather, to his temple, and that's where they were going to be safe. And he was able to coerce those people to come down there to give up their social security checks and to do it for Dad Jones, for Father Jones. And he was a skillful manipulator. He was an evil man. And when we talk about drinking the Kool-Aid, and I believe
mhm.
you mentioned that earlier on the
Yeah, I
conversation,
did. Don't drink the
drinking
Kool-Aid.
the
Yeah.
Kool-Aid, that came from Dad Jones, and it was a horrible, horrible example of people following a cult leader like lemmings over the cliff. I mean, not using rational thought, not using common sense, but giving up their autonomy and their
Mm,
freedom to follow this person that claimed that they were going to go
mhm,
and save their lives. So and he's just one of many. There's
mhm,
and I talk about these cult leaders. So a lot of it begins there, but they're they're horrible people. They many times use the Bible and they use the words of Jesus to go and coerce their followers,
mhm,
and they do it successfully. And
mhm. No,
and
it
with and, and
does.
with and with Jim Jones, those who wouldn't drink the Kool-Aid were shot, or they were forced to take it, or they were injected with it. And Jim Jones didn't drink the Kool-Aid; he shot himself. So he took the coward's way out, and he
Mhm,
died the horrible coward that he was.
mhm. It's sad. There's a lot of them out there. um, you mentioned Eric Van Daniken and
Yeah.
Hal Lindsey. And why do you think they're so popular and successful?
Yeah, because they were able to go, we feed into pseudoscience rather than true science. So with
Mm,
with with Hal Lindsey, he was talking about the end times and what that looks like, and as through the revelations and the Bible. So he reinterpreted something that we've had for the longest time. Van Doniken, on the other hand, talked about, well, maybe it was the ancient aliens that came down and interbred with man and gave us the technology to build the pyramids, and give us the technology for mathematics and everything else. And people like that, even though I think Van Doniken took a lot of his narrative from H.P. Lovecraft. I mean, you got to love H.P. Lovecraft. He
oh,
was right
yeah.
there in the epicenter of all this. But
Mhm.
uh, Van Doniken was a Austrian innkeeper. He wrote this book that defied every
Chariots of the gods.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it was, and it's not that it was a valid scientific book.
Is
Book
ahead of its time, though. Made you
exact.
think.
I know, and people loved it. It sold millions and millions of copies, and so he got us to think that maybe there was an alternative reality. And again, even though and I think I mean, we talk about the space brothers coming down and giving us the technology to build the pyramids, but I'm thinking
Mm,
that what, the ancient Egyptians were so advanced that when they built their pyramids, and and even today we don't know how they did that. We have 50 different theories about using 20,000 slaves and using the pulleys and the fulcrums and everything else. We don't know. We have
mhm,
theories, but we don't know because they were so advanced. But to say that the space brother came down and gave us the technology to build those Egyptian pyramids, I don't think so. I don't quite believe that. I think that we're being disrespectful to the ancients. And
mhm,
it's a lot easier to attribute it to the space brother. But again,
mm.
George Adamski foisted that on us, just as Eric Van Doniken did. And take your choice. If you want to believe that, it's fine. But
Well, I mean, there's some, I think, truth to, some of the ancient I'm not saying this specifically. I mean, look at oral history from the Native Americans, from
Yeah,
indigenous all around the world. They would emulate what they saw, you
yeah,
know. So you have that aspect, and then you have that's the whole negative blood type aspect, which is believed to have been some kind of a genetic interference. Like the missing link, so to
yeah,
speak,
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah.
kind of right in there, but they're trying to figure out, but how? And how did it happen so fast? Where's this link? You're going back maybe 30,000 years ago. So, and then you have the Hopi traditions, and there's also one, I believe, from Peru with a reptilian race where cataclysm happened
Hmm.
and the Hopi went down, were brought underground with the ant people, the big-eyed ant people who
Yeah,
saved them and took care of them.
yeah.
Same applied to this culture in Peru, ancient Peru. I mean, there's a statue that's been erected with this reptilian being who took them underground and educated them and fed them and
Hmm.
cared for them
Hmm.
until it was clear to be above ground. So you kind of think maybe we're just getting it wrong. Maybe we're not looking at beings from space. Maybe we're looking at beings that are already here.
Yeah, yeah, good, yeah, good point. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm
It's a
just
curiosity,
looking.
but I love bouncing it around. It's just like
Yeah,
theorizing to me is this. It's a lot of fun. It's just makes you think.
yeah, right. And that's what we should be doing. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, but I mean, what a fascinating uh, area that both you and I inhibit, or
yeah,
inhabit,
yeah,
to be able to go and discuss this,
yeah.
and it's just it's really a whole lot of fun, and it gives me a whole lot of joy to be able to go and discuss the paranormal and what it might be, what it might portend and
But
all
that's
that.
what paranormal is. It's
Yeah,
really nothing overly definitive. It's just one
yeah,
big question mark that if you can get a little bit closer to, it's kind of like, God, that's awesome.
yeah.
Will we ever have definitive answers and anything? I don't know. All we can do is look back to the ancients. All we can do is look at cave art. All we can look at petroglyphs, hieroglyphs, and have a look at that and kind of say, what did they leave behind? What were they trying to tell us? You
Yeah.
look at these ancient structures, it's like, gosh, like they're fantastic.
Mhm.
Were they given knowledge to help? Oh, maybe. Do I think that they were built for them? I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
that something is part of evolution, like we evolve. But I mean, even now, if you look at the powers that be in various governments around the world, they still get tech in one way or another from
Mhm.
these races. You look at back engineered crafts, things like
Yeah.
that, whether we're taking it because they crash landed, we took them down, whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
somehow we end up with this technology and we're still witnessing that today. So it's possible,
Mhm. I agree. It is possible. Yeah.
you know.
And yeah. And even with Neanderthals, which we some
Yeah.
of us have that DNA because
Yeah.
we crossbred, but with the Neanderthals, we have a wonderful fossil record because they hung out in the not the sand dunes, but the limestone caves and that. So when they died, they were pretty well preserved, and
Yeah.
we know that they were communal. They had family
Yeah.
structures. They had funerals, and I mean, they did some wonderful things, and also, one theory is that as Homo sapiens developed the cognition, that Neanderthal developed psychic abilities. So again,
It's
one
so cool.
theory that just that is just pretty amazing, and so
Yeah.
I don't know, but good
No,
something good.
I love it. I think that's what just keeps all of these fields on the move. It's just hypothesizing and trying to get as close as you can to the most plausible explanation. But
Yeah, yeah,
I always say half the fun's looking.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Half the fun's just trying to figure it out. And that's why we're having this conversation today, a sharing of ideas, and which is what your book is. It's like, here's some things to look at, which let's go with. I love Vincent Price. Always love Vincent Price. The Last Man on Earth.
Right. Um, Probably one of the best motion pictures about the apocalypse that I've seen.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of his best movies too. It's black and white, American Italian made,
Yeah.
and Vincent Price is Dr. Robert Morgan, and there's an apocalypse, and humans are turned into flesh-eating or into vampires, and they're the undead, and his wife's one of them. But he spends his life just putting a stake through their hearts and burning them, and 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 when he dies in a church Christ-like with a spear through his side
Mm.
and calling these vampires freaks. And he's speaking out and professing his humanness, that he's a human being, not
Mm.
a freak. And it's just a wonderful, I think, essay. I mean, I just love that movie. It's
Mm.
well done. Vincent Price, black and white, just a great
Yeah.
motion picture. So, and I have a chapter on that because I think it pulls a lot of this stuff together. Again, it's about the apocalypse, but
Mm-hmm.
apocalypse is a part of that my apocalyptic awe. Looking at this
Mm.
through a cinematic lens,
Mm-hmm.
and a literary lens.
Through pop culture and such,
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like the zombie apocalypse or, The Walking
Uh-huh.
Dead, like the same sort of idea. In your
Right.
end times, you're dealing is the survival, it comes down to the survival. I like that this one had a vampire twist to it. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
something very
yeah,
different.
yeah. And when you look at some of those books, like The Road with Cormac McCarthy, uh,
Mm.
talks about there's a father and a son and a wheelbarrow and a gun and one bullet, and he knows that in case the mutants, the
Mhm.
cannibals come after his son, he's going to kill the son. He's going to go and just like spare him,
Mhm.
that horror.
Yeah.
So, and I would love to write a book about a fictional piece about the apocalypse, just to see. And there's been so many. There's such a tremendous genre
Yes.
about that. What would life look like after the bomb went off? After everything's been for the most part it's been changed, and there's only a few people, just bands of people surviving, and trying to survive. So what would that look like? And
Well, the planet takes everything back. A World Without People. Do you ever remember that television series, A World Without People? And they show in apocalyptic times, if something happened to humanity, what would happen? And then they show this computerized generation of how the planet just takes back her space. Trees grow through
yeah.
concrete. The vines come out through concrete buildings. Like
Hmm.
over time, it just disappears. And then they show Chernobyl as an example where
Hmm.
over time now how the wildlife is starting to come back to the outskirts of the area after all of this time.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
slowly coming back a little bit and taking over. I think from the planet itself could definitely would come back to natural, but we ourselves are just like that's a hard one to look at. But what do you think of all the prophets? I mean, people have been prophesizing this for thousands of years, or hundreds for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of thousand at least.
Yeah. And
you
I have
know,
a chapter called it is called The Thousand Screams. I love the title.
Ooh,
But
yeah.
it's about all these people, all these prophets that said that the world's going to end. Like Jim Jones said it's going to end in 1967.
Hmm.
I think Charles Manson said there's going to be the race war and the apocalypse in 1969. We had all these people, Baba Vegna, uh, uh,
Hmm.
Edgar Casey.
Edgar Casey is a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's been so many people that have claimed that the end of the world is going to happen on such
Hmm.
and such a date, and so far, every single one of them has been wrong. But I have a
Yeah. Yeah.
chapter about that, and again, it hasn't all played out yet. I mean, there's other, there's future prophecies, down the road. So we'll see what happens. But
Hmm.
so far we have, and one of the big ones was. The millennial, the millennial bug. They thought that when the clocks turn to the year 2000, that the computers won't be able to keep up with that, and that everything would shut down. There would be this massive halt of technology and communications, and planes would fall out of the sky, and everything else. And that was in the year 2000, and that didn't happen because we prepared for it, and we got it right. They didn't think the computers would be able to go and calculate that. The
Hmm.
two, the 2000. So
Yeah. There's there's a lot to factor in. Like you see some of these predictions and there's bits and pieces of everything. It's just the timing that doesn't seem to jive. And some of them predict natural, cataclysm, like a comet,
yeah,
ironically,
yeah,
seems to be one that surfaces quite a bit.
yeah.
Any way you look at it, I love the whole theory of bridging between the worlds, as you say, and UFO sightings. You know, why do you think there's UFO sightings during time of cataclysm? Like we know they show up, during what nuclear sites, or look at in Japan when that facility blew up and all of a sudden there were crafts seen in the area.
Hmm.
That's
Good.
it. Yeah, this seems to be a thing. I know it's on one of our producers' sites. Somebody caught it with a portal.
Hmm.
It was an incredible picture.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
you're right. Maybe a portal opened. Maybe the time was right. Maybe,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the universe has a way of, of
Mm.
helping, healing, of destroying, of, of all of that,
Yes.
and of waxing and waning. And maybe this is just part of the universe, the laws of which are understandable, but for the most part, they're incomprehensible to us. So we're always looking and trying to figure out how it works.
Hmm.
And again, the paranormal's out there, beyond our reach. Again, it's unknowable because we just haven't found the tools yet, or maybe the language, we're not able to articulate, what it is at this point. But
Hmm.
you know, it's almost like, I think the best analogy is God. We talk about the the awe of God, that
Hmm.
that God is unknowable. However, it's our job as human beings to try to understand God.
Hmm.
So that's what we do. It's almost like a symbiosis, the,
Yes.
the parent and child. So it's kind of like that as well.
So I think we also maybe have to consider looking at what's real, what's not real. You talk about Project Bluebeam, for example, or PSYOPs, or, like, for example, what are your thoughts on the Three Eye Atlas? Apparently, it just overcame a solar flare that no comet could. So they know, nope, it's not that. So this was today. I read that apparently.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah. No, I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
They're saying
about.
it's a ship coming,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe,
yeah, right?
maybe it is, and maybe it's a sign, and maybe it is a sign of the apocalypse. I mean, I think the signs are there. It's just like, there's always signs there.
Hmm.
There's always signs. I mean, sometimes they're more profound, and sometimes they're just very subtle and muted. And when we see that the eagle or the hawk flying over there, when we see the rainbow, that's pretty dramatic. But
Mm.
there's other things too that are, the praying mantis, that's all profound and dramatic. But there's other things just as equally profound, only they're more muted, they're more silent.
Hmm.
Not as.
I think we live in very interesting times. I think there are things that will happen that will leave us scratching our heads, and I think we just have to take some of it with a grain of salt, perhaps. Maybe you just look at it and say, I don't know, is that a thing? Isn't it a thing? I think there's going to be a lot of, events or situations that we will be presented with, that we have to go, okay, is this something to distract us from something else? Are we that close to an apocalypse? Are we, because I mean, you have a lot of people who are saying we're just going to get through this rough road and things are going to be glorious. So are we quite there yet, or are we just being, shown that, the fear, again, the fear factor?
Yeah. You're, we're never going to be in the clear. You know, we're going to climb the mountain, we're going to go in the
Yeah.
valley, and then we're going to climb the mountain again. I mean, this is all cyclical. This is all predictable.
Yeah.
This is our journey. It's the same for me as it is for you. You know,
Hmm.
the only thing is we don't know what the destination is, but the journey's all the same. You
Hmm.
know, you got your ups and downs. You got your glimpses of peace and joy and happiness, and then you have some of the bad things or the things that aren't so good.
Hmm.
We talk about falling forward. A positive way of talking about some of the failures, but we fall forward. You just got to keep it going, but do it in a way that you're strong and courageous, and you keep the faith, and act as a mentor for your brothers and sisters, so that they can see us and say, "Wait a second, if he's getting through this, so can I." And if we could just maybe lead a life of example, I think that's the best thing we can do. And
Hmm.
again, this paranormal apocalypse is a scary thing. It's a very frightening thing, and there's a lot of people that are very much wrapped into it. This book is written not. I write this book not as a fear monger, but as a person who's very, very much optimistic, and that's what that book is. So. Uh,
Hmm.
I would hope that people wouldn't be scared away by it, but would be curious to read.
Yes. Yes. So where can people find the book?
Yeah. Yeah. Check me out at my website. It's www.maximfurek.com. And
Yes.
you could see a little bit about me, where I'm going to be. You could contact me, through the website. And there's nothing better when somebody goes and shouts out. I would say this: if anybody buys any of my books, please be so kind as to place a review on Amazon. It is it's what us authors really need. I mean, it just does something to that crazy algorithm, and
Yes.
the thing that we can't explain, but I mean, it really helps. So if you
Yeah.
could write a review, good, bad, or indifferent, it doesn't matter. That's what we really are looking for.
Perfect. So you heard him, guys. I'll leave the website up and the book cover. I appreciate everybody who took the time today to be in chat. And of course, Max, it's always a pleasure having you on. And okay, guys, here's the one to watch out. Need more Max. Needing more Max. We're looking at October 29th. And what you want to plug your book that we're going to be talking about with respects to the Smurl haunting, which is the
Yes,
latest Conjuring film.
exactly. Yeah, the Conjuring Last Rites is the last one.
Yeah.
Conjuring, by the way, for your listeners who may be uninformed, has reached $2.7 billion net, and that's not
Wow.
gross. That's net.
Wow.
And it's the most successful horror franchise in history. But Last Rites is about the haunting in West Pittston, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
right up the road from where I lived. I knew Ed and Lorraine Warren. I met Dan Rivera, the handler,
I
two
knew
days.
Dan. Yeah, I knew
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
yeah, 2 days before he died. And anyway,
Yeah.
it's all in the book. But we're going to talk about that on October the 29th.
Yes. October
And
29th on the main show. Yes.
yes, so looking forward to that. And let me check and make sure that I have that.
Yeah. That will be the 9 p.m. show.
Yes.
And while you're doing that, guys, tomorrow night, pop into Speaking of the Outer Realm. Laura Lee Potvin is going to be joining me, and we're going to be doing a deep dive into the obscure paranormal cases and stories that are out there, things that are a little bit different. We'll get into the origins of exorcisms and deliverances, ironically, keeping knocking out spooky month. And we're going to be looking at how it's done in different parts of the world. And with any luck, we'll have Amelia joining us as well. Thursday, open mic, Wayne Mallow's Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. We're going to be talking about ancient beliefs when it comes to mirrors, and we'll be looking at, do they create portals, scrying, black mirrors, you name it. If it's got to do with mirrors, we're going to be getting right into it. So tune in for that. And thank you, Max, for joining me today. I'm looking so forward to the next one in October. And to all of you, I'm going to say a big goodbye, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow night. Good night. Good
Good night.
afternoon,
Thank
wherever
you.
you are in the world. Thanks.